All right, welcome back. We are WEBD6201 in the winter 2022 semester at Durham College, and it's week 4, part 2 of our broadcast. And this is client-side scripting. And what we're doing today for our course is let's review what we did last day. So last day first, we talked about jQuery. What the heck is jQuery? Hey jQuery, give me this thing, right? With a $, that stuff. And then today what we want to do is we want to take this further, and what we want to do is we want to complete full CRUD. That's create, read, update, delete with a local storage object that we've been using so far to create almost like a mock data or mock database is what we've been doing this entire time. So this is pretty cool. And let's see how this is going to work. And let's see if I actually got... Am I actually live? And I do apologize, guys. My, for whatever reason, my controls and everything is really weird. And compared to what I'm normally doing, it's, some stuff is working differently as I'm on my laptop compared to what I'm normally doing. So bear with me as I'm gonna trudge through and get through today as normal. So, okay, let's review what we did last day. So last day, we were inside of our... Did it work, by the way, Zoe? Zoe, did it work? I don't know. So last time what we did was in our app.js, we started replacing code in our app.js. So this is your code. So I'm in class exercise 4. By the way, the in-class exercise 4 lab report is up. So then I can remove the code that I don't need. Let's just clean this up a little bit. And we can actually see the scope of a replacement. We've actually replaced a lot of our code, like all of this, really. Okay? And it's a lot. It really is a lot that we've replaced, right? With a few lines of code, we've replaced a whole bunch of JavaScript. Now, it didn't have to be this way. We could have reduced some of the JavaScript too and used less variable names and done things in line just like we're doing here. But I wanted to show you how compact you can make the same functionality with jQuery, which is what we did on Wednesday. So what we want to do today is continue adding functionality. And let's run light server to see where we're at. So if I run light-server, then when it pops up, here it is. I'm just going to pop that in there. You're going to see that if I go to Contactless and show my contact list, we have some examples, right? I've added some stuff today because I've been working with the other sections. You can see there's some additional entries that I've kind of added in today, okay? So here's what I want to do. I want to be able to have an add button. So click the add button. It's going to go to another page, the edit page. And I'm going to be able to go to one page and use a single page, edit, to do both add and editing, okay? And when I go to the edit page from this page, I want the edit page to look like a different page. I want to modify the edit page when I go there. I want to change the heading 1 to add contact. I want to change the button styles. I want to do all kinds of stuff when I click on the add button. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. Someone in the chat just said they can't hear you.
They cannot hear me. Okay. That would be very, very bad. And maybe it's because I'm muted. There we go. I'm muted, and there we go. Thank you for that. And that's Samuel. Thanks, Samuel. Yeah, so what I was saying is I want to be able to go in, thank you for that. I want to go into the edit page, and I want to be able to switch out some stuff that's in the edit page by going from the contact list. So from the contact list, I want to transport myself to the edit page, and then from there. But we don't have an edit page, so the first thing we're going to do is add one. Let's add an edit page first. So we have a place to go, okay? So let's start here in our code, and I want to scroll down to the closest thing that we have to an edit page, which is our contact page. Our contact page, if you think about it, and let's swap back for a second, right? If I go to my contact page, I have a form, right? Things I don't need in the form. I don't need a message for my adding contact. I don't need that. And I don't need this subscribe checkbox. I don't need that. And I don't need this show contact list button. I can remove all those things, but then we have everything we need for the most part as a structure for my edit page. So let's use this as a foundation. So again, I'm going to go back to my code, and let's copy my contact page. So copy, and then paste. All right. Again, I'm inside of your in-class exercise 4, right? So I'm going to rename this page. Let's rename it so that it is the edit page. While we're here, let's also go into the title and change the title to edit. And let's scroll down and remove some stuff we don't need, okay? For example, in the nav bar, because this came from the contact page, we want to remove the nav link active, this active class, we want to remove that. And the ARIA current page, we want to remove that because we're not going to highlight the contact link when we're in the edit page. Doesn't make sense. Okay, so let's get rid of that. Furthermore, let's scroll down into where the main element is. In the H1 tag, let's replace this so we can say edit contact. Okay. Nice. Next, let's keep scrolling. After we've changed the H1 element, we want to keep scrolling. We're just changing some stuff. Let's take the message away. So no more message area and the checkbox. Let's take those two things away. So no more message area, no more checkbox. And let's change the send button. Let's modify the send button and let's call it the edit button. Okay. We're still going to submit. It's still going to be the same colors and everything else. But instead of FA envelope, we're going to say FA edit, which is going to be a different icon. We're also going to change the name from send to edit. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. Last change we're going to make is we're going to replace our contactless.html. Let's change this. Let's take this button away. This is a button we're going to remove. There we go. Okay, let's take a look and see what that page looks like now. So how do we see the edit.html page? Well, we don't have a link directly to it, but we can type it in. So we can go up here and we can say edit.html. And there it is. Okay, are you with me? Thumbs up if you're on the page, if you're here with me, or check mark if you're remote. There we go. Thank you, guys. Good. It should be fairly straightforward, okay? One of the challenges are that we have this page, but we have stuff we're going to do with it, right? So when I click the edit button, it's going to take the information that I get from the database here and then update the database, which our database is local storage right now, okay? Cancel should also take us back to the contact list page. That's what it's going to do. That's the functionality. Let's go back to the contact list page. Okay, cool. Now that we have that, let's go into Visual Studio Code, and we can upload that page to GitHub. So again, I'm just going to add another link. And here, we're just going to go git add dot, git commit -m, and we'll say added edit.html page. This is one of the requirements for your in-class exercise 4 for tonight. Okay, and then, git push. And again, some people asked me earlier today, what is the link for, if you want to follow along. So it's GitHub /Durham Programmer. Here it is, and you can see that this is where we're at right now. I'm just going to take this link and put it into the chat so you guys have it as well. So the reason why I'm sharing it with you again is just in case you want to keep up and I'm going too fast and I might type something and it worked for me but it doesn't work for you. If I push, or if you ask me to push, you can compare your code with my code, okay? So we can move on from here. All right, great. So we added in the edit.html page, which is the kind of the first step. Okay, part 2, we want to add or modify, that's the wrong thing, I just clicked. We want to edit or modify the, let's just go in here for a second. I want to change the contactlist.html. So in the contactlist.html, it would be nice to have add button that's in here. So again, we're going to scroll down just below the column. So line 50 where it says div class column, and just before the table is kind of started, I want to add a button which allows me to, which I will use to go from the contact list to the edit page. So we're going to make it a button, and it's going to be the ID is going to be add button. I'm just using Emmet here, right? With a class of button, and then button dash primary, and then margin bottom 1. That's what that's from Bootstrap. Okay, are you with me so far? I'm just using Emmet. I'm going to get you guys to practice as much as I can. Inside of that, I want an I tag with the class of FAS FA plus dash circle. Okay? And if I press tab, then I have all that stuff. The only thing I'm missing is the name of the button, or the words that are in the button, which is going to be add contact. Let me take that whole line, if you guys didn't get it exactly, and I'll take that whole line and put it on chat. So you should have that button now. If we save it, and I go back to here, you can see that if I click the contact list, I have the button. There's that button. That's what it should look like, right? All right, so we have the button, and now I want to change the contact list here, so it shows all the every entry has an edit button and a delete button. Every entry, which means I'm going to change my repeatable rows, because we have a group of repeatable rows that's happening. I'm injecting the rows with a template string, remember? And I'm doing that for every entry in local storage. So I'm looping through all the entries in local storage, and then I'm adding a row every single time, right? Now I want to modify that and add some buttons to that row. So how does that look? So what we want to do is let's go back to VS Code, and I want to go and close a few things up. So contact list, there's really nothing to do in there right now, so I can close this up, and I can close my edit form because I don't need that anymore, so I can close that up for now. In my app.js, I'm going to work a lot in there, so I'm going to keep that open. Okay. And remember that inside of my display contact, that's where I had this repeatable region right here. This is the repeatable region. I want to be able to use Emmet in my JavaScript, but I can't, right? I can't use Emmet here. Or can I? Remember, Emmet only works with HTML and CSS. That's the shorthand, right? So how do I use it here? Well, we're going to fool the editor on the bottom where it says JavaScript. Let's change it from JavaScript to HTML. We're going to say, hey, app.js now is now an HTML page, just temporarily. We're just going to fool the editor. That's all we're going to do. And underneath here, we're going to start typing some shorthand to help us fill in the blanks for these things right here. Instead of me typing it by hand, I can use shorthand. Let's do it. So, and then I'll copy it into the chat, okay, when we do it one time. So I'm going to say, hey, I want table data. Inside that table data, I want a class, right, of text center. So text center is the one I want, text-center. I'm almost typing it by hand. And then inside of that, I want a button, right, with a value, this is new, a value of nothing for now. And the button will have a class of button dash primary, button dash small. So a smaller button than normal because it's going to fit in the row. And I want my own custom class, which is going to be called the edit class. Inside of that, I want an I tag with FAS, FA, right, dash. Let me just make sure that I've got, I'm just going to check my notes here to make sure if it's, is it edit? I think it's just edit. FA dash edit, FA dash small, right? And if I press tab, then I get all that. So that helps me a lot because that is one big amount of data, and I would take a long time to type it by hand, right? I'm just taking long now because I'm talking, right? And then let's change this to edit. What was that? I'm going to do it, yeah, for sure. That's why I did this. So I can copy this whole thing, copy it, and let's put it in the chat. Here it is. And I can take this thing, cut it. So I can cut this out, this whole line here, and just replace this first TD right here, this first repeatable region, because that's what it's going to be. And let's copy paste the second one too. Let's change both of them to the same thing. We'll overwrite the other one. All right, so then the second one, then it can't be the same as the first one. The first one is an edit button. That's what we're doing. We're adding an edit button, which is blue. Let's add a delete button, which is red. That's going to be danger, right? The class that we're going to use is delete. That's going to be our own personal class, right? I'll show you what that does later. And then instead of FA edit, we'll say FA trash alt, right? And we'll change the words to say delete. So that's the difference. And I'll take that whole thing and copy it into the chat too, just because. So you guys have what I have. I just wanted to show you the process, not because I don't want to give you the code, right? So, okay, cool. So let's save that and see what we got when we do that. So if I go back to the list, now we got this. Does anyone not understand why we have a bunch of buttons here now? So again, just to reiterate, I'm getting a button, 2 buttons for every row, because I'm injecting the buttons for every entry in local storage. That's what I'm doing. And this is very common practice. You're going to see this happen many times in different courses or different places you work, where you inject a repeatable section over and over again. Okay? This is not new for you. There shouldn't be anyway. All right, so now that we've got this, we need to add some functionality. So let's first modify let's upload to GitHub. So we do that next. So we can say that we've done that. So we'll say git add dot git commit -m, and we'll say added add edit and delete buttons to Contactless. It's pretty long. I don't normally like to put a long GitHub message, like a commit. I think it's too long, but it's okay. So again, what we want to do here is for every new feature, right? That's the process. For every new feature, for every new bug we fix, when you merge, when you go to the washroom, push, right? Seriously. And this way you'll reduce the chances of you losing code and having a problem, going, where was that bug? How come it just worked? It doesn't work anymore. What can I do? You can go back. Yeah. Right? So then you have it on GitHub and you just pull it down again, right? That's the beautiful thing. And it can happen not just with that, but there's other things that can wipe you out, right? So like the ever famous RM minus RF star, in Linux, right? So you just delete your whole system, by accident when you're a super user. And then when you do that, you're like, oh my God, I deleted everything. Well, I can get everything back now because a lot of my work is on GitHub, right? So you can get it back. Sometimes you can't, but that's why you have to use the process. All right, so now that we have this, I want to add some functionality. So one part was, let's make the buttons go. But now let's think about how to make the buttons work, because that's what we want to do now. How do we make the buttons work? And I want to start thinking about making the add button work first. So again, going back to our code, when I click on the add button, the add contact button, I want it to take me to the edit page. But somehow I want that page to know that I want to do adding, not editing. Okay, now that's tricky, right? You might think that's tricky. Actually, it's not so tricky. But what we're going to do is we're going to send a message to the other page on the URL, which is very common. And you've probably done that with PHP and other things like that too. Let's do it together. So how does that look? So Okay, back to this. So we're going to say, let's take some of these spaces away now. We don't need these spaces anymore. We can go to just after the contact list.innerHTML equals the data, which is inside of the display contact list page. Let's switch this back from HTML back to JavaScript, please, so we can get some JavaScript code hinting, right? So back to JavaScript. Again, what I'm doing is I'm pressing this button. This is almost like a button down here where you can select the language how it's sensitive. That's what you want to do, okay? And when I go underneath here, I want to start saying, well, I want to use jQuery for this, right? Let's use jQuery. Hey, jQuery, I want to get a reference to all add buttons, all references to elements that have an ID of add button. And on a click, what I want to do is I want you to, let's use fat arrow functions. I want you to run an inline function that does whatever it's going to do. And what is that inline function going to do for now? It's going to use the location object, location .href, and I'm going to go to the edit.html page. Let's just start there, okay? So, hey, jQuery, find me that add button, and on click, go to that page, right? So again, this is the standards for jQuery. The first part is, hey, jQuery, find me this thing, whatever it is, or this group of things. The next thing is, do some action, okay? And it's a different way of thinking than just adding event listener and all that stuff, although we know what those are. All right, let's see this work. So again, going back to this, click the button, and hey, we're here, right? But now I want to color the page. I want to change the page so it looks like an add button, not an edit button. An add page, not an edit page. How do I do that? Back in here. So here's something. I've just sent over my edit.html as an href. The location object has more than just an href. It has other information that can carry over to the next page. For example, if I add a hashtag at the end of this link, a lot of times the hashtag we use as an anchor tag somewhere on the page, right? We don't need to do that. We can use it to carry information over too, right? So we can say, well, I want to do an ad. What about that? Can I do that? If I did this, just adding the hashtag ad at the end of the HTML, and I go back to the page and click on the ad, now I get this. Look, right? Edit.html hashtag ad. That is information we can use because I can read that information, right? So that's very typical the way we do it. We kind of send things on the URL, and that URL is like clear text. It's okay because we're telling it what to do. So how do I take advantage of this now? Well, we need a way of doing some kind of JavaScript on the edit page, which means that in our switch case function down here, let's add some more information. We're going to say that, hey, when we're on the edit page, then do something. And of course, we're going to do something that's very similar to display edit page. Right? We don't have the display edit page function yet, but we're going to add it in. And let's just reformat this, just so that we go back. There we go. And even if it messes up, who cares? Because remember what we can do with this, we can just select everything, that little place, that little piece of code. And we can right-click, and we can always format selection. And we can configure what we want to use. Let's use beautify or prettier, doesn't matter which one. Right now we're using prettier, so let's use prettier. And it'll just change everything so it's the same. That's all it does. So it can do it nice. So we need the display edit page now. Let's put that function just here, underneath, just above our start method. So function display edit page. Okay, and then let's just, for good measure, let's do a console log, and this will say edit page, just like we've done with everything else. Just to let us know from a debugging perspective that we're at that page. Okay? And if I go back, right, and if I kind of inspect, you can see that in the console we have edit page. Right? So we know that it's working. We know that it's going through the switch case, and we're going back out into the other function. We can trace it that way. Okay? So now that we have that, we can say that, well, if we're in the edit page, right, is there a way to pick up what's in the location object? And the answer is, let's take a look and see what happens with the location object. So if I do a console log and I type in location, right, so we're going to output the location object to the page, then what we get is something that looks like this, right? Here's the location object. We get a bunch of stuff, guys. And this is where all of your security goes out the window when you go to a site. The location will tell you where you came from, what's your IP address, you know, a bunch of other stuff. Here, what's your port, right? And there's a lot of information that they can gather just from this, right? But it also tells us the hash. Hash is a property, and that it basically takes a part of the URL and describes it here. It's a property that we can, it's a string. We can do something with it, right? So if that's the case, then we can do something that looks like this. We can say, let then our page equal to location dot hash substring, hear me out, and let's start at 1. And what this means is, I don't care about the hashtag. Remove the hashtag, and I want a substring. So if the whole string was hashtag add, remove the hashtag and just give me add. That's all I want, right? Cool, now that I have that, what I can say is, let's switch case, right, on page, whatever that is. And I can say something like case add, then do something. And for everything else, do something else, all right? And when I say everything else, it means like if I'm going into there for editing or something else. And we're gonna fix this problem later because you can, I'm sure if when I said when do everything else means, wait a minute, what about if someone goes there by accident? What about if someone, there's some validation we're gonna do next week. What we can do here, and maybe you haven't seen this before, is we can add in curly braces too. And some people, when they see curly braces instead of a switch case, are like, wait, what? You don't need that. You're right, I don't need it. But it creates an instant scope. I can use curly braces anywhere in JavaScript by themselves, anywhere, right? And I can use curly braces anywhere in C++ by itself. Try it. And you can make a scope right there. You can add variables, you can do whatever you want in that scope with no function. You can't call that scope, can't do anything with it, but you can actually do some kind of algorithm in there. And when that scope is done, those variables are gone, right? You can do it with C++, C#, and JavaScript, and other languages too, right? So I'm doing this because I want to protect that scope just in case I have a variable that's the same name or something that I do the same. I don't want it to duplicate, okay? Again, not required, but it's another piece of learning for JavaScript. Remember, what I'm trying to do with you guys is just-in-time JavaScript. Whatever you need is what you're going to get, right? And anything else, we're going to learn as we go, because there's just too much of it, like any language. So now what I want to do with this is, if I can detect the page, and if I know that I'm coming in with the add page, then I want to modify some stuff on the page, because I know I'm on the edit page. I know that I'm getting a message that says I need to be the add page, right? So what I can do is, let's take a look at the edit page for a second. And if I take a look at it, I haven't saved yet, but if I look at the elements in the page, you can see that in the body element, right, I have this main content. And in the main content, I have an H1 tag. So let's try and target that H1 tag. It doesn't have a ID or anything. How do I do that? Well, I can do something that looks like this. Hey, jQuery, I want you to look inside the main content, and inside that, I want you to find me an H1 tag. And doesn't this look familiar? Like Emmet? And guess what I want you to do with it? I want you to replace the text that's in there, the text content, with add contact. Does that make sense? Hey, jQuery, find me an H1 that's inside of a main, and then that's all of them, by the way. I only care about one, but who cares? Just find me that, and replace the text with add content. And then when I come back to this, you can see that there's add contact. Cool. Well, I do the same thing with the button. So you can say, hey, jQuery, what about if you find me a button with the name of edit button, this one, and I want you to change now, instead of the text, I want you to change the inner HTML to, here's the the template string, right? And we can do the trick again, but I'll just type it in this time, right? So we want to type in an I tag with a class of FAS FA plus circle, right? And we'll say FA large, and we'll replace at the end we'll add in add, like this. I'll take that and put it in the chat for you, just in case you didn't type it right. That's a bit of a type thing. So let's go to the chat. Right? And what that does, it says, hey, replace the HTML. Why didn't I use text here? Because I have this I tag. If I inject HTML and into a text content, it'll just look exactly like this, like an I tag. It'll ignore the formatting altogether. But if I tell JavaScript that it's actually HTML, it will make it HTML. It'll add it to the page, right? So if I do this now, and if I save and go back, you're going to see that it's missing. What happened? I missed something, right? Well, let's see. Did I close off the class? No. And now it's back. There we go. So this is a trick, if you will. It's a trick because I'm getting information from my other page that this is the ad page now. Well, let's change to look like an ad page. Okay, that's what we're doing. Awesome. All right, so that's the first part. And now that we've done that, well, we don't just want you to change the button. How about what I want to do with an ad? What do I want to do with an ad? Right? Let's do some, some pseudocode here a little bit. I want to be able to gather the information from the form, whatever the form is, right? Like normal. So gather form info, right? So that's like the name, contact number, and email address, right? I want to get that information, right? And then what I want to do is I want to serialize and all that stuff. Wait a minute. Didn't we do that already? We did that already, right? In the contact form, we did that. Can't we just copy that stuff over? Oh man, copying, that's bad. Do not repeat yourself. Keep it dry, right? So how do we do that? Well, let's go back up to the contact page. Display content. There it is, this part right here. I want to do all this. Again, right? I could copy and paste that. But why not just have a function to do this for us? So what I want to do is copy this. So let's copy this part. So copy. And go up to the top above the display contact page. And let's make a new function. And this new function we're going to call add contact. But we need to pass in some information to this contact, right? We need to pass in the full name, the contact number, and the email address, because it won't have the information inside this function. We need to give it this information. And now let's paste it in. So here's what we don't need. We don't need, and the reason why this is doing this is because I'm missing a curly brace. I could have an extra curly brace. I knew that was happening. Something like that was going on. So I probably copied an extra curly brace, most likely. But I don't need full name value. That full name value is going to be passed in. We don't need contact name value, contact number value, or email address value. That stuff is going to come from the calling function, right? Because I don't have a form here, so I can't use that, right? I can only use value when I have a form I'm accessing. I'm not accessing the form right here. I'm using this function as a general function, right? And let's comment it. How do I comment this function? Well, I want to point you to this new little extension that I would like you to get called document this if you don't have it already. Document this. Please get that extension. This extension, again, it's a very valuable extension. And what it allows us to do is do something like Javadoc, okay? So the way it looks is exactly like that. If I put / and 2 asterisks, it'll ask me to select document this, and then it'll describe all my parameters when I do my documentation instantly. From here, I can go in and change the parameter type to string, which is what they all are. If I was doing this with TypeScript, it would pick up the parameters from the types And we can put a short message that says something like, you know, adds a contact object, to the to local storage. All right, so a little bit of a message. And what I can do here is take this this add contact and replace the stuff that's inside of my display contact page in here. And I'm fairly confident it's going to work. So let's just do it. So add contact, and let's pass in. Take a look. When I open it up, it says adds a contact object to local storage, right? Which is our little comment, right? Plus, it tells me the types that it is looking for. So I can put in what we normally had: full name, dot value, right? Contact number, dot value, and email address, dot value. Okay, why are the values here? Because this way you'll get the actual strings that we need to be passed into the add contact function, and then we don't have to, it's much more valuable this way. Right? So all that same stuff with one line, add contact. This is awesome. This is fantastic, but we can use the same exact thing, add contact. Let's just copy this line, right? And we can put it now inside of our edit page, right? So scrolling down, scrolling down, scrolling down. Right here, where we're gathering information, doing all this stuff. I was starting to write the pseudocode, but all we have to do is boom, do this. Boom. Right? Add contact. And then what we want to do, right? What we want to do is, I want to do this, but I can't do it just like this. It has to be when I press something or do something, right? So I gotta do it when I'm pressing the edit button. So I'm gonna say, hey, jQuery, when I, kind of press the, let's just do this. When I use the edit button, and if I do a click event, if I click on the edit button, I can have an event, and the event will be using a fat arrow function, where I can say that event.prevent default. So I'm going to prevent the default behavior, which is for me to submit. And then I can add contact, which is add contact. Right? I can actually copy that that whole line, this line right here. Right? I cut paste in here, which is really what I want. Okay, so that is the add contact. That's inside of the edit button. When I click on it, it will edit it. And then to finish it off, I want to update the, I want to refresh the contact list page. And the way that I refresh it is to go back to it, right? So how this looks is, I want to go to a location.href, where I point that to the contact-list.html. And that is my add code so far. What am I missing? Let's put it into as well the cancel button. Let's grab this. What do I want to do with the cancel button? Well, what I want to do, let's call this the cancel button instead. What I want to do is on click, when I click on the cancel button, I also want to do a similar thing that I've done before, which is location.href contact list. Okay? Make sense? So now I've added two events, one for the cancel button and one for the edit button when I'm adding, right? The edit button actually is going to look like an add button. The cancel button will take me back to the contact list if I decide to change my mind and add a contact, right? And the edit button will actually add everything to the local storage. Let's try it out and see if it works. So save, go back, and we can go back to here just to check it, add contact, and let's add a new contact. We can add whatever, let's just add your name again to try it out. So again, 416-555-5551, right? And email address is tom at example.com. You add your name to it. Add, and there it is, right? Add works. Are you with me? Right? Are we good? What? Okay. Let me put this up on GitHub, because now we've added, you can check it on GitHub, guys.
I'm getting an error on my Contactless, but trying to feel the add button.
Okay. Let's do it. So again, just like before, I'm going to say git add dot. Git add dot. Wow, git commit. That's what happens when you're typing standing up. Try it, guys. Add functionality to the contactless page. Git push. So again, what this is, the good thing about this is now we've kept up the track. We're pretty good. Okay, what else? So now that we have add, that's excellent. How do I do delete and edit? Ooh, I got to delete a specific record key, and I got to add a certain key, or I got to edit the key too, right? Huh. Well, I can think about how to do this, because that's going to be handled down here. If I'm editing, it's going to be handled down here. But let's try and see if I can do the delete first. So I've got the add button. How do I modify the delete button? Let's do delete first. Okay. So let's think about how this would work. We're going to say, hey jQuery, I want you to find a button with the delete class. Oh, this is what I was doing up here, huh? Look, remember I had this like edit and delete? It's another quick way. I'm making the buttons. I can make them whatever I want, right? I didn't add IDs for the buttons. I added classes for the buttons. Why classes? Because there's many of them. I have a bunch of edit buttons and a bunch of delete buttons. And I want to target each one of them, not just one, right? So that's why I'm using classes. I mean, you can use IDs too, but it's more of a convention this way. So I'm saying, hey, get me all the delete buttons. And what I want is when one of them is clicked, right? When one of them is clicked, any one of them, what about if I try to do this functionality again, right? And I use the fat arrow function, and now we're going to have a problem. Who remembers what the fat arrow function does? It's a special thing that it does beyond just replace the name function. The word function isn't the only thing that fat arrow does. It does something else, right? Remember what it does? Anyone? It replaces the lexical this, which means that if I'm looking at normally at a scope, and I say if I put this right here in this scope, it means this scope right here, right? Fat arrow says no. We don't want you just to look there. We want you to look at the containing function, this one. So that's what the functional scope will be now, right? Now this is great when I want you to do something inside the scope somewhere, okay? It's amazing because you can't normally do it, okay? But this is not what we want here in jQuery. jQuery, we want to use this. Remember the $ this that we talked about briefly? $ this does, it basically says, hey jQuery, return a set of results. For those results, that's what this stands for. For those results, do something. But if I use the fat arrow function, it's going to not work. It'll say, no, jQuery, don't look there. Look at the function, the functional scope above. And it'll make a complete error of everything, right? So that's number one. So we have to replace this. I'm going to show you the error first. I'm going to show it to you so you understand it, so you remember it, okay? The other thing is, where the heck do I get that value? Because I want to be able to have access to the key somehow, right? Well, the key is right here. Look, we say for every key in keys, do, right? Okay, well, this is it. I can store the value right in here. Inside of each edit button, I can store the key value with a context, it's a template string, and I can just inject it like this, right? So I can inject the key value in everything. And if I was to do this, just now, before we finish off this function right now, let's not finish this function, right? So how does that work? How does this work if I was to do that, right? Well, let's see. So if I go back, and if I look here, right, and if I was to inspect one of these buttons, so inspect, then you're going to see that, look at this. That is the key value from the local storage. I put it in here. Okay, guys, this is a trick, right? I'm using the edit button to store the value of my key. If I know what the value of the key is for every button, now I'm in business. Now I can send it, do something, remove it, whatever I want to do. I have control, right? So, cool. That's excellent. And that means that here, right, what I want to do is say, cool, I like it. When you return that, I want you to go to location.href, and I want to, well, first of all, I want to reset this, I want to refresh the page. That's what this is going to do. So I want you to go back to the contact list page, right? When I'm done deleting, I want you to go in and refresh the page. That's what this does. So we want to refresh after deleting. Ah. Excellent. Okay, but what about when I want to delete? I can say local storage dot remove item, and I can put in, and here's the problem, here's the error, ready? $ this dot val. This means, hey, get the things that this returns and get their value and remove them whenever time I click them. But that doesn't mean this because of this little piece right here. So if I was to try this, let's show you this for a second. If I was to try this, and I want to show you how it works. So if I click, delete now, it's going to go, nope. The reason why we can't see the error is because of this. Let's just comment this out just one sec. So delete, and nothing happens. But if we go back into the inspector and look at the console, we get nothing. But what happens? Like, does it delete anything? Doesn't do anything. It doesn't edit or delete. Those don't function. So that's actually a mistake. Let's see what's going on here. So I'm targeting a button that has the delete on click, right? I want to, we should actually get an error, right? On the on click event. We should, we're using the fat arrow function and we're trying to remove item, the thing that we're getting. This should actually be an error, not nothing. Let's see if we actually get in there. I'm just curious, because that doesn't look right. Delete. Okay, it's working, but nothing's happening, which is weird. I got an error earlier, and I should get an error right here, by the way. It should just error out, right? Let's fix it and make it work. So again, back to this. Let's get rid of this. And all we need to replace to make this work is this. Let's get rid of this and go function. Okay. And let's put down, let's put back the location href. So we're going to refresh. And what does this look like when we're done? Well, if we do things properly, then if I click this button, let's just delete myself. Let's delete this guy. Then it should just disappear. Hey, right? But guys, this is bad. This is really bad. You know why? What if the user doesn't want to delete that? It's an accident, right? There's no recourse. It's gone forever, right? There's no undo. It's finished. We need to put something for better user experience in here. Just a little bit. Not a lot, just a little bit. And since we're here, let's do it. This is how we can do it. We can say that if confirm, a confirm is like an alert. Are you sure, right? Which is like, hey, user, are you sure? I'm going to kick you out of normal operation because I need you to pay attention to this. If the user clicks OK, they're sure, then it's going to do the deletion. If they press cancel, then it's going to reset the form, refresh the page. I had a question today, said, like, why would I want to refresh the page if I don't do anything? Remember what I'm doing. right? If I click on that delete button, right, I'm telling it not to do anything. And I want to also reset all of the event handlers and make sure everything's proper. It's just a by far a safeguard. I'm telling you right now. Just refresh the page, guys, if something like this happens, right? Let's do that and try it out now. So let's try and delete Victor Von Doom. Delete. Are you sure? No, we're not, right? And it doesn't delete. Okay? That's how it should work. Okay, delete function is functioning now. We're good, right? Sure. Does it make sense? So how am I doing that? Because I'm getting this. $ this says, hey, return everything from every delete button. Every delete button has its own key that's stored in the value property of the button itself. It's a trick. It's actually stored physically on the page. You can see it, right? I'm going to get that value, and I'm going to use that as the key to delete from local storage, because I can use remove that item, right? The item that is with that key. The value that comes from that key value pairs, right? Let's put this up on GitHub. So we're going to say added delete functionality to the, did I split over there? To the contact list page. Wow, it's brutal. And of course, what I want to do is I want to do git add dot and all that stuff too. See, I'm rushing, right? It's terrible. Here, how about this? Git add dot. Okay, git commit. Let's try that again. Added delete functionality. I'm getting tired, guys. To the contact list page. Well, I've been here all day and standing up. And then git push. And I'm not saying I'm that weak that I can't stand up all day, but it's been a long time. About a year and a half, right? Then, that I've stood up this long. The rest of the time I'm sitting down, doing something, right? Yeah, I think that's where all the COVID weight came from. Okay, I gotta be honest. All right, so this is the delete function. This is good, right? And I want to add the edit function with the edit button. How does the edit button work? Well, we want to send information to the other page now, right? Okay, this is the first piece. We want to send a message. I want to say, hey, I want to, let's just copy paste here. When I click on, let's just copy this whole thing and replace it, okay? When I click on the edit button, we don't care about are you sure, right? We don't care about this local href thing. What we do want is we want to go to the edit page just like we do here, right? And I want to add, right, $this .val. So what does this do? So this says, go to the edit page and take that ID from local storage and pop it into the URL. That's what I'm going to use to get the stuff from the local storage and play around with it. Okay? Because otherwise I don't know how to get that information. All right, let's see if this works and what it does. So if I go back here and click edit, it goes here and look at the top. I get all that information, right? Now remember, it gets hashed, right? So if I look at the console, and if I type in location.hash, I get this, right? So that's this part right here of the URL. Anything after the hash. That's what hash stands for, right? Okay, nice. I like it. What I want is to use that code that we had before, right? In the display edit page. I already take away the hash here in the page, right? And what I want to do is in the default area. Now again, there's Ethan talked about this earlier today, and other people talked about earlier today the same thing. They said, Tom, but there's no validation. You're right. There's no validation. And you know why? No time. We'll do it next week, right? So let's get it done. So we're going to say that, okay, cool. We want to do the following things. We want to get the contact info. Let's do some stuff. Contact info from local storage. That's one thing we want to do. We also want to display the contact info in the edit form. We also want to do this. When the edit button is pressed, we want to update the contact. Okay, that's what we want to do. So those are some things, right? Let's start with those. So how do we get the contact info from local storage? Well, first we need an empty contact. So let contact equal to a new contact object, empty, right? And we want to say contact dot deserialize and pass in local storage dot get item and page. So why this? Because page is the hash, everything else after the hash, which is that key, right? That's the key. And we want to get from local storage the string that the key returns. And we want to take that string, which is a comma delimited string, comma separated string, a CSV, take that and put it into the deserialize function of my contact, which actually puts it inside as properties in my contact. So now my contact is full of a name, contact number, and email address. That's what I've done. I've taken that contact out from the database and I've popped it into a contact object. That's what I've done. Next, I want to put it onto the page. And for that, I need to use some jQuery again. You say, hey, jQuery, I want you to find me the full name object, right? And I want to change the value of it to my contact dot full name, capital, right? So this finds the full name text object and changes its value. And let's do the same thing for not just the full name, but also for the contact number and the email address. Let's do that. So this is contact number, and this is contact number capital, contact number, and this is email address, and this is email address caps. You probably are faster than me to do this, and that pops it in there. So let's stop there, right, and see that it does that. Let's see if we can get this functionality going. Are you with me? Yes, 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 yes. Good, good, good. How about the people online? Are you with me too? Check mark if, oh, Matt's with me. Okay, good. And who else? And Tuba. Okay, good. Excellent. All right, so let's try it out and see if it works, right? So we're going to go back to here, and there it is, right? Take a look. So if I click on any one of these things, Dr. Doom comes up with Dr. Doom. Captain America comes up with Captain America, right? And the way that works is exactly what I said. It passes over, if I click on the edit button's loaded. It's pregnant. I'm sorry to say it that way. Please forgive me. It's pregnant with that information, all right? I push that information to the URL. It's right here. And once the URL, once I have this information, I can take that information as a message, just like I did with the ad, and I can manipulate it, right? And that's what we do. It's very, very simple. Okay. Sorry? Yeah. Sorry. It's this. So I make a new contact, right? And contact deserialized, local storage get item page. Page is the hashed or normalized or sanitized, let's put it that way. We sanitized the hash, we took the hash away and we left that other stuff. And we can use that sanitized version of the URL information as the key in our local storage to retrieve the local storage information and deserialize it and put it inside of the contact object. From there, we push it onto the page by changing the values of the text inputs in the form. All right, that's what we're doing. Make sense? It's not working for you? Okay. I'm sure I can debug it, but give me a sec. Okay, next. So once we have this, then it's pretty simple, right? And by the way, what might be your challenge might be that it's up here, something up here, because it is not working? Yeah, so that's probably up here. So this part here, let page, local hash, location a hash substring. See what you get when you get this. Do a console log here for your page. What is that? What do you get when you put page in the console log? Like if I put console log here, right? If I put page, right? Could be the issue for you. Then if I go back to the page for the edit page, then if I look inside the inspector, you're going to see that inside the console, I'm going to get this. It comes up? Oh, that's wonderful. That means that's half the problem, right? Oh, that's great. So then the next thing is when we switch, case add, then do something. Case everything else, which is default, the default case.
Yeah, I put a console log at the beginning of the default case, and that is also printing.
Oh, good. So it's coming here. All right. So you're making a new contact, and your contact deserializing, and you're getting stuff from local storage. Break this up into a separate step. Get your local storage, call it data. Let data is equal to local storage.get item page. Right? You can break it up. I've just put it in one line because that's how I felt like doing it. I don't know. So you can do this. Zoe, look, start like this. So take this part here, cut it out, and put it in here, and then just call this data. So let contact data, right, is equal to this. And then take this contact data and deserialize that, right? And then what you can do in the in-between step is you can do this. You can say, okay, that's pretty cool. Let's show me that contact data, console log. Do you get that? Contact data. Show me what you get here at this step, right? That's a way of debugging, right? You're cutting it. You're kind of whenever I look at debugging, guys, it goes back to my old Bell days when I used to work at Bell. It's trouble isolation is what we used to call it, right? So we have two parts. There's a problem somewhere in between here. I don't know where. Okay, let's go here. Let's check here. Let's check here. Let's check here. Let's check here. Oh, there it is.
Yeah, so
right?
what we've done is basically
Right.
print the console log with contact.string to make sure that it's actually deserializing properly.
And?
And it is.
Awesome.
It's really bizarre. Like, I think I haven't asked somebody else for it because
So maybe it's here. It's here. In full name, contact number, email address, and then the contact full name. It has to be caps, Zoe. Capitals. Capitals.
oh my god.
Yeah, that's what it is.
I think Jacob got it. Sorry.
No, it's good. I'm okay with that.
I hate having sets of variables with the exact same name before it was capitalized.
Let's just undo.
Yeah, there we go. Works. Thank you.
No problem. Okay. So now that that works, we know we can get it. I want to be able to modify it. And the only way I can modify it is through an edit button. We're going to do that here. So we're going to say, hey, jQuery. We're going to listen for the edit button being clicked again. Right? I like that on click event that we did earlier. Right? And we'll use, just like we did before, the event. The event, and we'll say that fat arrow function event.prevent default because we don't want the form to submit. And what we want to do is here's some new pseudocode, get any changes from the form. We want to replace, not update, replace the item in local storage. And I want to return to the contact list. So now let's see how we can get any changes from the form. Well, it's like this, but reversed. Look, if I copy this, yeah? Yeah, that would be good. That's just me being tired again. It's the end of the day, right? I've been standing up, my mask hurts my ears, and I just want to go home. It's one of those kind of things, right? I'm joking. But I am a little bit in pain. So the way it works is this, right? Edit button, click, and then how do I do this? Well, I can copy all this stuff, right? Let's copy it. And what I want to do when I paste it in is I want to do the reverse. So I want to take this part, the part that's inside the val, cut it out, and put an equal sign, like this, right? And let me explain what that does. So I'll say, hey, put this stuff back into the contact, the stuff that was changed. If the user changed anything, put it back into the contact that we just had, the contact object, right? If the user didn't change anything, put it back into the contact object anyway, right? This gets everything from the form and puts it into the contact, right? And then finally, the last step would be, hey, local storage, right? We want to set item, and we want to use the page key that we were sent, and we want to contact serialize, like we've done before, out. And that sends out everything back to local storage the way we took it in. And of course, here is just a location.href. Let's just type it in. I can copy paste too. And that's going to equal to contact list. Understandable? Last but not least is the other button that we have, right? Did I need anyone there? Yeah, I do. This button here, this cancel button, let's just copy this one. We could put it somewhere else, but for now, let's just do this. We'll refactor next week. Because the cancel button is going to do the same thing. If I press the cancel button on either one, add or edit, it's going to take us back to the contact list, right? So really, we don't have to put it here. We can put it somewhere down here. But let's refactor next week. Okay, any questions around this code? Do we know what's happening here? Well, I'm taking the stuff from the form because remember, the val for jQuery is both a getter and a setter. I'm using it in getter format right here, right? Here's the setter format where I actually pass in a parameter. So this is the setter, this is the getter, right? Okay, good. So let's try it out. So let's modify Steve Rogers' phone number and turn it into a 2, right? And press edit. And I go back and Steve Rogers is a 2. So now, full CRUD, my friends. We're all good to go. Questions around this stuff? This is the main part of what we're doing this week. Full CRUD with local storage. And if you didn't think you could do it, right? Now you know. It's not that difficult. It's just that you have to think, your mind has to think through it, right? How do I use that persistent data store, which is what local storage is, right? And how do I communicate from one page to the other? In your mind, it's different than you've done it before because, first of all, we know that HTML is stateless, right? It's not watching, it's not listening, right? If you change the page, then you have to refresh it. It's not going to refresh for you, right? So that's why we keep refreshing. Okay, last thing we want to do, let's put this up on GitHub, and we have one more thing to do that I forgot to do in the second section. And I apologize for those people that are watching this video and they're like, wait, Tom asked us to do this, and it's not, he didn't even cover that. I didn't. I totally forgot. This is like me standing up all day thing. I'm telling you. It's like, I'm in this like weird state right now. Okay, let's control backtick and put this up. Let's see if I can actually type this properly now this time. Git commit -m, and I'll say added edit functionality to contact list. Git push. Okay, so we've done all that stuff, great, but we talked about the problems that we had. One of the things that I put down in your lab report is this idea of scope. We talked about this earlier this week where I said, this is bad. My contact is in the middle of my global scope. I don't want that. I want it to be kind of put away inside of a namespace. Now, this is the last change we're going to make. It's going to take the remainder of our time here together. It won't take long because we're way ahead of time because, of course, the last class after I've practiced, after the third time, I think I've got it right. The first one I was running to finish. Now I've got 40 minutes almost, right? It's just the way it goes. All right, let's do this. So what I want to do is I want to show you what it does. So up here, if I was to go to inspect into the console, and if I typed in let Tom equal to a new contact, I can do that, right? I should not be able to do it like that. The contact should at least be encapsulated in a namespace. And if I want to release it, if I want to export it, I choose to do it. I don't want the user to get something that I don't choose to give them. Here, I put it in the global space. I have no control, right? How do I control this? I want to put it into a namespace. So when we think about namespaces, we think about what we did with TypeScript. If I go to typescriptlang.org, remember what we did in the namespace. We had something that looked like this, namespace core, and some kind of contact with a first, second, and third parameter, right? Well, what it actually translates to be is this, which we know and love by now, which is our nice iffy, right? Look at an iffy. Here's the iffy function with some additional stuff at the bottom. What the heck is this? Well, we said this. We said we need some kind of container. That's the container for the namespace. We need that. We need an iffy. We're going to pass in a reference to the container down here. That's how it works. Look, this is really funny syntax, right? The container can either be empty or it could be an object. That's what the double pipe is. It's an OR. It can be either empty, undefined, or it's an object. If it's an object, then we want to add the contact class to it as a property. Remember, in JavaScript, when we assign it, we create it. Right, going back to that. Someone's moving stuff around, eh? It's pretty crazy. But the problem with this is, what if I wanted to add more to the core namespace? If I declare a variable, and I do this every single time I add a new class, it's going to say the variable's already been declared. You're redeclaring a variable over and over again. So I need a little thing that you're not going to be happy about. But we're going to do it together anyway, right? And what we're going to do is we're going to make a brand new file called namespace.js. Let's do it. And these little hacks you're going to one day appreciate, I hope. Okay, so let's go to new file, and it's going to be called namespace.js. And at the top of the namespace, we're going to say let core, and that's it. And underneath that, or before that, we're going to say use strict. And then semicolon. That's it. That's your namespace. Put that up on GitHub. Do you understand why? Yes or no? If you don't understand, tell me now, because it's going to get more complicated from here. Zoe, are you saying you don't understand? Okay. So imagine if, before I put it up on GitHub, imagine if I want to encapsulate my, encapsulate means to put my class inside of a namespace, right? Just my contact class. But if I want to do it again, how can I put it inside core again? I have to have a reference somewhere in the global namespace. This is my global namespace, right? Because namespace.js is exposed, let core is like in the browser cache. Anyone can go to core and get to it. I can go to core dot, and then anything that's inside of that is going to show up. Example, core.contact. We're going to put contact inside the core namespace. And if I go core.contact, I'll have access to it. So why? The question might be, because I want to protect it. If I want to add in some private functions inside the core namespace to help me with my contact class, my user class tomorrow, or something else, I can do that. But now the way it is, any file that I put inside that I attach is all in global space, and that's not safe. That's why I'm doing this. Okay, so, and we're setting it up for future uses too. All right, so let core, and let's put this up on GitHub. So we're going to say git add dot, and then git commit -m. We'll say added namespace file, and then git push. It's a silly way of doing it, but it works. And I say silly because we won't need it later. All right, what about the next part? So now that we have our namespace, how can I use it, right? Well, I want to encapsulate the contact class. Here's my contact class. I want to do what we did with TypeScript. I want to do this. Let's actually just copy everything from the function down, please, from the TypeScript. And I'll pop this into your chat, okay? Just to make it easy so you don't have to do it. Here it is. It's in your chat now. And I want to talk about this and how we're going to modify it. We don't need all of it, right? But I want to talk about it. So inside the top, before you do use strict, we don't need use strict anymore either, right? Because everything is use strict. Because it's in the namespace. So we'll talk about how to add the namespace in a second. So what we're going to do here is at the top, let's put in that little piece of code, right? Obviously, we don't need the class because the class is down here. So we can get rid of this, right? However, we want to pop in the class inside of this little enclosure, right? So we take the class, the whole contact class, cut it, and put it inside of this closure. Why? Because now it's enclosed. It's inside of a namespace called core, right? The only way you can access the contact class is to go to core.contact. And we're creating almost like an API, an application programming interface, where I may have multiple classes I'm going to be using in the future, right? And I don't want those classes to pollute the global namespace. I want them to be inside of a core namespace. I can have multiple namespaces with the same class name too, right? Okay, but now we have issues. Let's fix our issues. First things first, let's go to our contact list page. Our contact list page will never work now because we don't have the namespace in there. So let's go script source, and we'll put in /scripts/namespace. So what this does is, I'll put an extra slash. What this does is it's going to have my namespace be added to any place I have my contact class for now. So I want to add it here, save. Oh, damn. Save, and let's copy this whole thing. Come on. And I want to go to my contact and put that down there too, right? Because we need that there. Because anywhere we have the contact class, we want that in, right? Save, as well as the edit. We want that too, because edit uses contact as well. So we've modified contact list, contact, and edit with namespace.js. We've added that in there, right? But we're still going to fail. We're going to fail because we've been using a new contact in the wild. Like in my app.js, I have contact is equal to new contact. That can never work, right? It has to be contact is equal to new core.contact. That's the new code that we have to use. Let's go into our app.js and fix that. So what we're going to do to make it quick is we're going to find and replace. Or we're going to find and replace manually, please. I want to look for this pattern, new contact, okay? And I want to replace with new core.contact. This is going to change the number of replacements down from a pile to very much lower, all right? Are you with me? Do you understand what I'm doing here, right? Yeah. So I want to go replace. And if I do that, it replaces all of them with core.contact, and we should be okay now. Let's save, and let's check to see the functionality is still there. So going back to our pages, and we should still see everything. If you see a pile of errors, it's because you haven't replaced contact, or if you haven't saved everything, you haven't put things in the namespace, that, whatever. And that's cool. So now, let's see what it looks like on the console. So again, if I go to the console, and if I go to let Tom is equal to a new contact, it's going to go what? It doesn't appear. It's not even active. If I do this, it's not going to do anything. There's no code hinting. But if I go to new core has a bunch of stuff, and one of them is contact, and now we can get all that code hinting again. That's how it works. So core is just an extra little step we have to go ahead of time when we want to use anything in the core namespace. We're going to put other stuff in the core namespace. This is not the last class we're going to put in there this semester. That's why I made it now, right? Okay, let's put this up on GitHub. So git add dot, git commit -m, and we'll say added core namespace. Added contact to core namespace. Contact to core space. Git push, come on. The last push didn't even work, come on. All right, questions. Do you not understand that? Anyone not understand, put their hand up. Or X in the inside of the our chat. So the biggest challenge with understanding JavaScript like this, and when we look at it, is the questions. Why is the question you should be asking yourself. Why? Do I need it, right? What about if I use the export-import pattern that we talked about way earlier? There is an export-import pattern in Ecmascript 6. Does that also go to the global namespace? Well, no, but it's not as common, right? Unless we're using Node.js, which we're going to be using in the future. Therefore, we don't have to do all this stuff, right? So that's one thing. But if I want to add a bunch of classes, and I want to add it on front-end JavaScript, and I want them to be protected, and like I told you guys before, I've built entire games with JavaScript, right, using this system, right? Why? Because the system doesn't pollute itself, and it becomes very organized, right? If I have, look, we have one class, guys, right? What if we have 30, 50, 100, right? It's not uncommon, right? And if every one of those classes is in a namespace, then I can organize myself. I'm like, okay, wait a minute. If I'm building a game and I want to access the core namespace might include things like game object, display object, agent, some basic things, right? And then maybe I'll have another namespace, which is components. Component.transform, component.rigidbody, and you can add different things in there, other classes, right? What about a util library? Util.math, util. Whatever I want, right? So I can start organizing my application programming interface into a very structured application. We're moving away from just making websites. We're moving into making web applications. And this is one of the first steps. It's ugly, but it's required, okay? That's really it. One thing is just a piece of administration before we leave, and then I'll let you guys go. I know this has been a long day for you. It's been a long day for me, that's for sure, right? But let's take a look at a couple of things, right? The one thing I want to look at is the lab report, just really quickly. So the lab report for the in-class exercise is there. The lab report for your lab 1, is not there. I have to do that. I'll put that up later on today. It's due on Sunday, thank God, right? So I wasn't able to get to it today. But basically, the lab report looks like this. So again, version control, 0.5%. Site structure, namespace.js, it's 0.5% for like 2 seconds of work. And you're gonna be mad at me because your edit page and related JavaScript functionality also 0.5%, and so is your contactless page, which is 0.5%. So really, at the end of the day, that namespace is as much as all the work that we just did in 2 seconds for all that little thing. Why am I doing that? It's a nice balance, right? And so is version control. So really, if you just do your namespace and version control, you get 1 out of 2.
You still want it up on the live site, right?
What?
You still want it up on the live site?
No. That's why I didn't put it here, because I can't, because this weekend you're doing your lab, and you need to use that live site space for your lab. That's why I'm doing it that way, right? You only have one live site that you can use, and I'm getting you guys to do this weekend, right? We'll do it again. We'll go back on live site later on when we need to, right? For now, no. And especially when we move into Heroku. Later on in the second half of the semester, we'll be using Heroku and not GitHub Pages anymore, because we need Node.js, and GitHub Pages does not support Node. It only supports static pages like ours, right? When we go into Node, we need a server, and to have a proper server, we need to go to some kind of real cloud service. We're going to go into Azure or AWS or Google Platform or Heroku or DigitalOcean or one of the other ones out there, okay? All right, that's it for me today, guys. Thank you so much. I'm going to stop recording on YouTube, and then I'll take questions and anything else from the class. Again, thank you so much for attending. I appreciate your feedback and all that kind of stuff. Thank you. And your all the live stuff has been